And you cannot put in place a public payer system that can control its own allowables, that can control its own determinations of what is and is not covered, and expect that we're going to maintain a private payer system in this country. Even the CBO has said thousands upon thousands of people are going to lose their private insurance coverage. If this legislation is passed, it needs to be defeated.
Yeah.
And thank you, Joe Wilson. I worked in the Senate Union of the United States for a while, and I'll tell you that that's a place where decorum is respected. But you get outside of the Beltway and among all of you, and I know that liberty is respected even more. And when a liar is lying in a speech that is filled with lies, the emotional impulse to call that liar a liar is understandable. Joe Wilson, you were right. Thank you. This administration has it wrong on border security. We're in a post-9/11 world. We'll talk a lot about that today. We cannot justify in a post-9/11 world to have a porous border where anyone can cross the Rio Grande, where anyone can enter this country illegally, consuming the public resources of our nation, taking jobs when we have double-digit unemployment. Mr. Obama, seal the border! And our energy policy with cap and trade. No secret, India, China, our major competitors of the world aren't constraining themselves in this way. They're finding energy, natural gas, oil, petroleum, anything, coal, anything that they can find that will fuel their economic development. They are exploring and developing. We want to compete in the global economy. That means we need to be exploring domestic energy in this country and wherever we can find it. We talk about the national security of this country, and I don't want it forgotten. 3,000 Americans lost their lives on 9/11, but let me let you in on something I hope you already know. Had Al-Qaeda had the ability to take out 30 million Americans, they would have done that. If they could have shut down 10 American cities as opposed to 2, they would have done that. We remain engaged in not an overseas contingency operation, as Mr. Obama wants to call it. We remain engaged in a war on terror, and there is only one option, and that option is victory. And when Pyongyang and Tehran are in the midst of developing nuclear weapons programs to threaten the security of this interest and our allies around the nation, Mr. Obama, use common sense. Why are you cutting missile defense at a time when the threat in that area has never been greater? And I know all of you have followed the situation in Iran, and it's just one of many examples. Is it not too much to ask of our government in Washington that intrudes in every area of our lives, seemingly, that when people rise up against the tyranny, as those brave thousands did in Iran, to send the message that we do not stand with a regime that has governed its people tyrannically. We stand with those people that embrace freedom. That would have been Ronald Reagan's message. That's what Ronald Reagan would send today, and that's the message we need to send to Washington. America supports freedom at home and abroad. And I don't think we've come here today necessarily to tear down this president as much as we have to build up our ideas, but I want to offer a few words about concerns that are great ones that we have about this president. And I think it has to do with honesty, and I think it has to do with transparency. And let me start with just one example that happened right over here in Missouri. And I don't think anyone's had a chance to mention it yet, but Mr. Obama came out here to Missouri. And Dana and many others led a very successful Tea Party opposition to that visit, and it got underneath the skin of Mr. Obama. And he said exactly that he would be more than happy to meet with the leadership of the Tea Party movement to talk about the future of Medicare and Social Security. Well, let me tell you something. A lot of us here, Dana, Michael Patrick Leahy, others here today, took him up on that offer. We sent a letter to the White House We said, we will meet with you, Mr. Obama, to talk about the future of this country. We're still waiting on a response months later. That is political deception of the worst kind. We will not allow this movement to be used politically. And then there's the transparency issue as it relates to this president. And again, we've talked about how this movement is they're attempting to stigmatize it. Calling you a mob, calling you ruthless. I mean, it's laughable, we know. But look at the label birther. Can we just talk about that a second? What it is we're really asking for? This president has now spent $1.5 million in multiple courts around this nation filing protective and privacy motions to avoid releasing every document related to his birth, every document related to his time in Indonesia, every time related to his time in college, every one of his law clients. This is the least understood president in the history of this country. Mr. Obama, what are you hiding? Release the documents! We don't jump to conclusions. That's not what it's about. But when the leader of the free world, who has a constitutional obligation to be a natural-born citizen, and his hospital birth records could be released today on his order, there is no justification for this White House to be doing what it's doing, no justification for our media to be ignoring that issue, and no justification, the most controllable part of it all, for we, as patriotic Americans, to put up with it. Friends, I want to try, if I can, many of you I know, many of you I don't know, but I've looked into the eyes and hearts of the people of this Tea Party movement, and what I've seen is disenchantment, fear, concern. We've tried to lift each other's spirits up, and I think we do a good job of that. And I want to leave you with a final word. This is a long book, what Lincoln called the battle between good and evil. And I've skipped ahead and read the final chapter. This movement, with its embrace of patriotism and liberty, wins the day. We will rise and succeed as the most important political movement of the 21st century. Thank you very much, Quincy, Illinois, for your commitment to it. Thank you. God bless you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Johns.